Time doesn't erase murder. It just hides it better. They said the case was closed. They said no one was watching. But someone always is. This is Santana True Crime.
Welcome to Santana True Crime. Tonight, we're diving into one of the most haunting missing child cases in American history. The disappearance of 13-year-old Leigh Marine Occhi. Joining me, as always, is my brother, Dr. Brian Santana, co-author of A Murder on Campus, The Professor, the Cop, and North Carolina's Most Notorious Cold Case. That book is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Audible, anywhere where you can buy a book. Let's get back to the case. On the morning of August 27, 1992, as the remnants of Hurricane Andrew brought heavy rain to Tupelo, Mississippi, Leigh was left home alone for what should have been less than an hour. When her mother returned, Leigh had vanished. Inside the home, investigators discovered a disturbing scene, including blood evidence and signs that someone had attempted to clean up. More than 33 years later, Leigh has never been found, and no one has been charged in her disappearance. Over the years, this case has generated countless theories, rumors, and speculation. Tonight, we're going to separate fact from fiction. We'll walk through the verified timeline, examine the evidence investigators have publicly confirmed, discuss the mysteries mailing of Leah's eyeglasses, and take a closer look at the renewed investigation activity in 2025 that brought this case back into the spotlight. As always, our goal is to keep Leah's story alive while presenting the evidence responsibly and encouraging respectful discussion. Whether you followed this case for years or you're having this for the first time, we appreciate you spending your evening with us. If you enjoyed the thoughtful discussion, please subscribe and let us know your thoughts in the comments in the chat. Dr. Brian, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to be here. And this is, I think, haunting is a good word to describe tonight's case. This is one I just learned about this case recently over the last few weeks, and just the description of it, it's a very disturbing case.
It is, and it's very odd.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those that when you look at before we get into it, if you just look at the factual timeline or what we know to be factual, and I haven't seen a lot of discrepancy in this, is that we're talking about an hour.
Yeah. Potentially less than that. I think an hour is a generous timeline. Yeah. But that's an hour at the high end of that. Yeah. So we're not talking about a big window of time for something that is not only a very brutal crime, but one that, despite the activity of different agencies, no arrest.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about what we know about Leigh. And we know that on August 21st, 1979 is when her parents, when she's born. Her parents, Donald and Vicky, were serving in the U.S. Army at the time. Leigh was actually born in Honolulu, Hawaii, which is interesting.
Oh, very cool.
But due to the Army, I believe that's why they made their way to Tupelo, Mississippi.
That's a big difference, yeah.
Yeah, her parents eventually get divorced, and Leigh is living with her mother in Tupelo, Mississippi. And we know that in August 27th, 1992 is when this crime occurred. And the facts are very limited, but they seem very clear that around 7:35 to 8 o'clock, Vicky, her mother, leaves for work, and Leigh is 13 at the time. And so her mom decides to let her stay at home for the first time alone. But she's not going to be gone very long. She's expected to be picked up by her grandmother for an open house at school. And this is also the time that Hurricane Andrew, the remnants are still around the area. So you're getting a lot of heavy rain, and it's I'm sure that it was safe, but also there's got to be some chaos involved in that.
Yeah, I'm at 13 years old. I think today we look at this and say like, oh, well, that's very young to be left alone. But I think when, we were growing up in the 1980s and 90s, 13, this is about the time when parents, at least during that period, would be like, yeah,
Right.
you're okay. We'll be checking in with you throughout the day, making phone calls and stuff, maybe from work, but this is not like abnormal behavior for parents during this era, 1992.
You're right. And people need to keep that in mind that a lot of the kids in our neighborhood, including us, we would
Mhm.
ride home from the bus,
Yeah.
walk from the bus stop, which was not right at our house, which is kind of the trend in the neighborhood where I'm living. And we would be home alone until our parents got off from work. So you're talking about a few hours. And
Yeah,
that
they talk
was
about
every day.
yeah, I mean, they talk about it as like a generation of, was it latchkey kids is the term they use now? The people that like had their own, that were given their own keys to let themselves into the house when
Yeah.
they got home because their parents were at work, right?
Yeah.
So,
And that was just a common thing.
yeah.
And so that may seem odd to some people, but I don't, especially during the time. I'm at
Mhm.
13. That's an appropriate age.
Yeah.
So again, we've got her mom leaving home, and then around 9 a.m. is when Vicky actually returns home,
Mhm.
and she reports seeing the
And
garage
and
door.
Vicky's also, I think it's important to also clarify. Sorry to interrupt you, but
Go ahead.
Vicky, I believe, works. Correct me if I'm wrong. She only works like a mile and a half away, right? Isn't it like 2 or 3
Right.
miles? It's
Yes.
very, very close. That's another important detail. It's not like, well, I'm leaving my 13-year-old hour home and I'm across town. She's leaving her alone for a part of the day, but she's also checking in with her even after just 1 hour, and she can be home literally within 5 minutes.
Right.
She's down
Yeah.
the road.
Yeah. So I don't think this is like irresponsible parenting at
Right.
all.
That's what I'm getting to.
Like
Yep.
this is it just seems like a normal thing. And besides a hurricane being around, this would be or remnants of the hurricane.
Mhm.
Uh, I think this would be just a regular day. But we do know that when she does return home, the garage door is open,
Mhm.
the lights are on, and when she steps inside, this is the bad part that she sees blood on the walls and the floor.
Mhm.
And she initially searches the house, and then I was listening to another podcast on this where one of the investigators said that she searched the backyard as well, and they had a shed. And so
Mhm.
for some reason, she looked in there as well and didn't see her. And then that's when she called 911.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like by the time you're looking at a shed in the backyard, that's not like when your kid is homesick, right? Like I get it. She's like doing a thorough search, but yeah, things are not that's not looking good.
And I wonder if that, and this is speculating, but
Mhm.
she may have panicked at that point. I mean,
Yeah.
if you come inside and you see blood smeared on the wall, I think that that would be a natural reaction to maybe have a little freak out moment and not know what to do and not think, "Oh, I need to call 911 right away."
Yeah.
I think running through the house and seeing if your daughter is injured is
Right.
appropriate, and, I understand searching the shed too.
Yeah. So the first part of your story when you began though, she arrives home and the garage door's up. That's a detail that's really frightening
I wanna
because what
Yes, I wanted to hit on that. Go ahead.
so my question for you, and maybe you have a better sense of this, but I know with like our garage door, it runs with a remote that's within the car. And what I was wondering was this it the if this is a point of entry or a is it a point of entry? Is it a point of exit? Why is the garage door up? And my other question would be, if the garage door was up, was this the kind of electronic kind that would have required some kind of clicker, or would she have raised it? And why? Right? It's a strange kind of detail for me.
And I thought about that too because
Mhm.
I didn't know if this was an older garage door that you more or less slid open manually,
Okay.
or if this did have a motor, and is that is there a, a keypad or some type of button that is on the exterior that is
Mhm.
easy to access, or is this something that you can only access from the inside? I I've got a lot of questions about that, and because I thought about it, and at my house,
Yeah.
a lot of times we go into the house via the garage. So we would open the garage door, and then there's a interior door inside the garage, and we'd enter that way.
Yeah.
But when you think about something like that, if your goal is to, if that's your entry point,
Yeah.
then I would assume that you would close the garage door. That way,
Right.
the door isn't left open and doesn't draw suspicion. It would make more sense to me if that was the point of exit, because
Mhm.
you may not be as concerned, or there may not be a way, if you did have a vehicle,
Mhm.
to close that door without getting out of the car,
That's
right?
true. Yeah, no, that's very true. It would make more sense, I think, as an exit point because you have to wonder, like, suppose that, yeah, your goal is you're sneaking up on someone, and that's an entry point. I know, like, at our house, when the garage door goes up, it's loud. Whether and
Right.
that'd be whether you're doing it manually or that. If Lee's in there in the house and you hear this noise, that would be like, s- startling, and maybe give the person time to call 911 or whatever else. And you just have to wonder, like, it seems like a very noisy entry point that would unnecessarily just announce yourself.
But on the flip side of that,
Hmm.
if that's normal behavior for her to hear, like if
Yeah,
it's
maybe she
normal for
assumes
her
it's
to
her
hear
mother.
the
Yeah.
garage, yeah, she may
Yeah.
just be like, "Oh yeah, that's mom," and her guard may be down.
But what a gutsy, like, ballsy move to, like, try to be your entry point is gonna be through a garage, like, in the morning like that.
Right, and I don't
It's,
think it was, but we
yeah,
know that, or at least I saw reports that there was
mhm,
no signs of forced entry.
okay,
So either A, the offender went to the door
mhm,
and, had Lee open up the door voluntarily,
mhm,
which could been, I mean, she's 13, it's
mhm,
1992,
yeah,
this is a small town, it appears to be a low crime area in that neighborhood. Mom
okay,
is a 5-minute drive away. Someone could have, you know, done something under false pretense of,
mhm,
"Hey, I'm selling vacuums," or it could have been someone that she knew. And if she recognized a person, she may
mhm.
be more inclined to open up that door for him.
Well, would the person would have needed to know if we're thinking about just, like, victimology here, right?
Right.
We would assume because the window is too tight, is it assuming too much to imagine either the person was either lucky and they just happened to be in this random neighborhood on that day and encounter a house where there is a girl home who's sick, who's by herself with her mother's not staying home with her? Is that more likely? Or is it more likely that the person had at least some level of familiarity that this person was home by themselves and that she was not feeling well, or that they would be likely to kind of let them in under false pretense.
Well, it's well known that, stranger abductions are rare.
Mhm. Right.
And so if this was someone that was, let's say that this has happened before, where the person would go around and say like, "Oh, they're from UPS or whatever," and
Mhm.
they're knocking on doors to try to get to see if the person's home.
Mhm.
And this is done for, robberies and break-ins quite often. If that was the case and they knocked on her door, I
Mhm.
would also assume that when the police do their canvas,
Mhm.
which what I mean by that is they go around to every single door, knock on the door, and ask if they've, seen anyone suspicious and whatnot, that they would get some type of response from the neighbors like, yes, I've saw this
Right.
strange man that was walking around and acting like he's selling vacuums or whatever.
Right.
But we don't have any reports of that. So I
Mhm.
think that it would be more logical that the offender did go to her house
Mhm.
and probably did have knowledge that she was home alone.
Mhm. Had knowledge that she was home alone. I mean, maybe we should talk about what we actually found inside the house. So we have this because the garage door up is curious and she's not there, but that's not all that's there.
Right. And so inside the house, there's blood in Lee's bedroom. There's blood on the hallway. There's blood in the bathroom, and it's smeared. And there's also, I was listening to a investigator talk about this earlier today, where he said on the uh, kitchen countertop,
Mhm.
it looked like a pink glaze almost was on there. Like,
Oh,
there was blood on it, and someone essentially smeared it while they were cleaning it up.
interesting. Yeah.
And we also know that her pajamas, which had blood on them, were
Mhm.
stuffed in the laundry bin.
What do you make of the detail of the putting the of I mean, guess I'm wondering about both the attempts to clean. It doesn't feel like the person was in a real hurry. I mean, there's obviously more blood than they can actually clean, but those efforts to clean some spots, but also to put the clothes in the laundry basket. Did you have any thoughts about any of that?
I think that the blood in the bathroom,
Mhm.
and I haven't seen any pictures, but so I'm making assumptions on this. If I would be curious, are we talking about the tub?
Yeah.
And if we're talking about the tub or the shower, and that's where you're seeing a lot of blood, then I would speculate that that is more geared towards the offender cleaning up a crime scene of a deceased person and not a kidnapping, as opposed to
Mhm.
um, someone that, I mean, there's got to be some type of violent altercation that happened, right? Like, you don't get that
Right.
by carrying out a body out of that house.
But
You're
there's
not
no
getting
real
blood smeared on the walls.
but there's no real evidence of a struggle as well, right? Like, I mean, aside from the blood. The blood's an evidence of
Well,
the struggle, right? So,
we know that we know that at some point the offender tried to clean up,
okay.
and it appears that, at least in my eyes, that the offender either knew that he was on a timetable, or B, that they didn't have time to sit around and clean the entire house. Like, I
Okay.
don't think that they, and this is speculation, that, but just if you're looking at it from like a logical point of view, if you
Mhm.
see that someone is cleaning something up, but they didn't spend enough time to clean it up properly,
Right.
then I think that would be more indicative of someone that's like, "Oh crap, I've got to get out of the house," and not someone that is like, "Oh, I've got the entire day. I'm gonna bleach the entire place. I'm gonna make sure there's no evidence of this crime," as opposed to leaving smears on countertops and leaving blood on the walls like that. Like, there's a lot of kind of reckless
Mhm.
behavior in this,
Including
and
taking the body, which is really risky too, right?
r yeah, and that's a whole 'nother aspect to this, but, like, the crime scene itself, it's hard to depict of how much blood we're talking about. Is
Right.
this is there enough blood where we can say she is probably not alive, or is this more of like a handprint that someone was injured and smeared on a wall as they're fighting away, right? Like,
Right.
There's a lot of ways that this could go, and it's hard to we'd be completely speculating by saying that it happened one certain way.
But the idea there's bloody towels, there's a bloody footprint, there's blood on the bedroom wall, there's blood in the hallway. There's a lot of blood. There's no evidence of the kind of struggle, things knocked down or some obvious source of like where all this blood. There's no like knife laying around or weapon, I believe, right? That's
Right.
laying around there. And so, what I'm wondering, because there's blood in her bedroom wall, she was sick and home with flu like symptoms that day. Has there been any conversation that you've seen from investigators? Do they at least have a theory about where the attack actually began? We have blood in different places, but is there a point that they believe it began? Was it in the bedroom and then migrated out from there? Or is it other areas that moved towards the bedroom? Or is it just kind of more chaotic than all of that? I wonder.
I think that that's a question that they probably know the answer to, and that'd be just
Mhm.
speculating.
Yeah.
But if you're again, if you're looking at from like a more of a logical point, and you're looking at, okay, there's very little blood here, and then there's a massive amount in the bathtub.
Right.
I think you can put together a scenario with that, but they haven't
Yeah.
shared that publicly.
And the other issue is if there's blood all over these different areas of the house. If we go back to that point that we started with about the garage door that is open, what I'm wondering is if there was this much blood, there was even some effort to kind of clean up a little bit on one of the counters, but there's just not time for that. I'm
Right.
wondering, and so there is a certain degree of like hurriedness, and this is not like every meticulous drop is being taken care. It's just that's just not the way this crime scene is.
Right.
I guess I'm wondering, was there blood in other areas? Was there blood in the garage? Was there blood around the outside grounds of the house at all? Was there like blood anywhere else that might indicate some movement? And that's what I was thinking of where it starts in the bedroom. Like what is the sequence of events like? Is there any evidence that she's obviously not within the house. She's somewhere outside the house. We don't know how far she is from the house, but she's somewhere outside of the actual house itself. Was there any other blood or evidence that was collected to suggest any location outside of the interior of the house?
Yeah, and I don't know about that, but I would also look for things that are missing
Mhm,
that could have been used to prevent the blood from leaving her body,
mhm,
like a tarp or a bedspread or something, a piece of like a rug,
mhm,
something that her body could have been rolled up in and taken away.
mhm.
And we don't have that. No one has said anything about that publicly.
Yeah,
Her mom never mentioned that. Her mom at one point mentioned to them that she believed that some of her underwear was missing,
okay.
that some of her bras and panties were missing. I don't know if of how accurate that is, or if that was ever found, or if she was just going through and looking at her dresser, closet and saying, "Oh, I think some of her underwear are missing," you know?
Could that yeah, and could that open garage could this be also if this was or are you imagining this is maybe an exit from the crime scene? So in other words, if the
Yes.
individual traveled there by car, well, the question is, well, was it parked in the driveway? Was it parked at the street? Was it parked down the street? Was there any other reports of any suspicious activity or witnesses about any other cars that they saw around that time that morning? I'm wondering if maybe the garage offers us an explanation for that. Is it possible that there is this blood throughout the house, but if it is limited to that area, is it possible the person pulled their car? They opened up the garage and pulled their car into the actual garage and kind of loaded her in that way?
And that would make the most sense from a just looking at it as, if you're trying to conceal getting the body out of the house, if she
Mhm.
is not alive, and you're putting that body in a trunk of a car or in the back of a vehicle, you're not gonna carry that out the front door. You've gotta remember this is, 9 o'clock in the morning.
People are still on their way to work, like, or
Right.
running late for work maybe,
Yeah.
or maybe their kids are sick, or maybe they're walking their dog, or maybe there's retired people in the neighborhood who are out and about. It's,
Yeah, and I've listened to neighbors that were down the street in the cul-de-sac, and
that's
they didn't
wild.
report seeing anything suspicious that morning. They
No ear
went to work.
witnesses. Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't see anyone walking around that neighborhood, no strange cars. And so that's what's odd about it. And that's why it would make sense and be the easiest thing to do if you are an offender is
Mhm.
to conceal your vehicle, right?
Yeah.
And the other kind of issue with this is that we don't know if the offender knew that they had a limited time frame.
Right.
We assume that just based on the lack of cleaning that occurred, but if we can assume that, yeah, that person was trying to get out of the house
Mhm.
and not spend hours in there, the most efficient thing to do would be to back the car into the garage and pop the trunk and throw her in it,
Mhm.
whether she's dead or alive.
Yeah. No, I think that that probably would make the most sense. It's, one of the things that notes that I did see in some of the news coverage, of this case was that when this scene is discovered and a search begins for her, presumably a search for her body at that point, after all the blood that they noticed, it was reported that hundreds of people come out to assist this, and they search woods, they search fields, they like dredge ponds, they go to nearby neighborhoods. I mean, it seems like a pretty thorough search with a lot of different people involved. And so it just
Yeah,
it and usually in these cases, I mean, I'm wondering exactly how far this person could have gotten, and even when they wherever they were going, like, where would they have actually, dumped or gotten rid of this body? It's been 33 years. In some of these cases, it doesn't take too long before some hunter stumbles upon a body or something, or some other situation. 33 years is a very long time. And and they did a thorough search around there, and you're wondering, like, how big is the radius that, because it seems like a lot of the markers in this case, which I know we haven't gotten to the package yet, but a lot of the markers in this case that's a nearby town, are tied to a very small geographical area.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
and like you're saying, I mean, they use bloodhounds and the dogs, I guess it sounds like they never really tracked.
Okay.
And they actually had a helicopter and but at the same time, it's like, yeah, it's great to have resources, but you've also got to be looking for something. And if you don't have a suspect vehicle description,
Mhm.
I mean, if this was a she walked off from her house, then I'm confident that with those bloodhounds, they would be able to run a track on her if she's on
Yes.
foot.
Yeah.
And you would also, with a helicopter and enough volunteers, like, you've got a
Mhm.
good chance of being able to locate her.
Yes. Well, that was my question about the like, if they were, did they, I mean, there would be plenty of opportunities to get her scent from the house and so forth. Were
Right.
they that, and where did the scent not really go anywhere outside of that? Or is it just you said they weren't able to pick it up?
Yeah, from my understanding, they did not actually get on a track. So,
Interesting.
a lot of times, what happens when you're working with dogs is the handler will take them to the last known location, and you're essentially he'll sometimes take them off the leash or, like, give them a lot of leash, and you'll see the dog, and they're, like, doing circles around that area
Mhm.
trying to pick up, um, that track, right? And
Mhm.
then once you can with a lot of dogs I worked with, they would, like, put their nose down to the ground, and you would just see a different reaction out of them, like, they, like, locked in on something, and that's when you know that you're good to go, and, they'll follow them until they eventually lose it, or you find what you're looking for. But in this case, it sounds like the bloodhounds,
Mhm.
which bloodhounds work on scent too.
Mhm.
Summit, they've got her clothing. Summit, they're not looking for like disturbances in the ground or anything. I mean, they're tracking her body odor, so they're going to be able to
Mhm.
differentiate between her and like a deer,
Right.
right? Um, so they've got what the resources that they need. I mean,
Mhm.
these dogs are specialized in finding people, but they're not able to pick anything up, which is kind of adds to the point of, well, if you're not able to get a track from that house and you've got an open garage door, I
Mhm.
think that saying that a vehicle was used is probably a good bet.
It's probably good, but yeah. No, I agree. And so then it's just a matter of like how far and you know and who. I mean, this is 1992. Would there probably would not have been like traffic light cameras, right?
No,
And even if this was
no.
this is a small town, so it wouldn't have happened anyway, probably.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the best you can do in 1992
Mhm.
is do a good canvas of the area. So again, knocking on doors,
Mhm.
maybe going to some of the convenience stores there nearby, seeing if they saw anything suspicious, or and then you're like passing out flyers and really um, doing a lot of legwork, a lot
Mhm.
of physical knocking, which takes time and resources.
Mhm.
And yeah, so it's not like today where we could say, oh, well, a 13-year-old is going to have a cell phone. Let's get up
Right.
on that and let's get her GPS location, or, the all the other cool stuff we can do, or look at her social media. None of that was available.
And her age makes this complicated too, because think about the difference. If this was someone who was, let's say, 16, maybe a little bit older, someone that was of dating age, you might say, I mean, I think many people will remember when they were in high school or junior high school being like, "Mom, I've got a sore throat or tummy ache. I don't feel well, so I'm going to stay home." But, and you could imagine maybe a scenario if she was a bit older and she had a boyfriend or something, or some guy she was kind of seeing, maybe that person kind of coming over under the guise of being
Right.
sick. But we're talking about a 13-year-old girl, and we're talking, if we're assuming that because of what happened with the dogs and because of the fact that the garage door is not closed, if we're assuming the person had the ability to drive a car to begin with, it seems like it's probably not one of her peers, right?
Right. Yeah. I think that'd be a safe assumption to say that this is a adult offender.
Mhm.
But
Things are gonna get really weird in this case
yeah,
even a little bit later after, just I think it's what, 12 days later after that?
yes, September 9th, 1992, so 13 days after her disappearance, a
Mhm.
package arrives,
Mhm.
and inside is Leigh's, eyeglasses.
And this is coming from the town of what, Booneville, Mississippi, I believe,
Right,
which is
and it's
around.
addressed to her former, stepfather, which is odd too,
That's odd, yeah.
and the stamp is the person actually used water to put the stamp on instead of saliva, which in my eyes kind of shows some intent with that too.
Mhm.
And so therefore, of course, you're not going to be able to get DNA from the saliva, and touch DNA at the time was not around.
And this is about 20 miles away, right? Like, I wonder, was this package dropped off at that? Like, I know postal workers see people all day long, but I'm just wondering, like, in retrospect, if there was any sense. Well, if this was dropped off with a postal worker, 1992, did they have security cameras? Was there like closed circuit TV in 1992 at post, like a federal, that'd be like a federal place, a post office?
But the other option is if you put enough stamps on it, they could have just thrown it in the box.
That's true, and the glasses were very clean, right? You mentioned the stamp. The FBI does
Right.
test the stamp, and there's no saliva there. There's no useful fingerprints, and there's at least some idea that investigators, you can correct me if I'm wrong, believe that there was some indication that it was an attempt to mislead the police. But I kept wondering, like, well, like mislead in what way? Like,
And that's I
like,
felt the same way. I thought this was more like taunting the police, if anything.
yeah. It
Like,
comes.
oh,
Is it taunting that, like, oh, I'm just this town is 20 miles away where it's mailed from? Like, oh, like
yeah, and that
um,
was probably not a you think about it, you can put any address on a box,
mhm,
and you've got enough stamps on it, and you throw it in one of the just regular US, mail, blue boxes that you see around town.
uh-huh.
I mean, that would be an easy way to,
That's true.
avoid detection, and also, I mean, that would be a way to throw someone off, like, why are you addressing it to the stepfather, you know?
Well, I
Is
mean,
it more about him?
it presumes knowledge of who the stepfather is, right? So
Right,
whether
it
there is
does.
there is
That's a good
that.
point. And it just that's a good point that it does show that you had familiarity with her family, and this wasn't a random guy, as I said before, selling you a crappy vacuum.
I mean, the other thing, I mean, if you really want to look at this, the other way to think about that would be, this is just almost 2 weeks after the fact. If it was someone who didn't have that connection to, or at least knowledge of the family, maybe it was someone who saw the local news coverage and saw the parents being interviewed or mentioned on TV, and that's addressed that way. But I don't know. It feels something like more taunting. Now the glasses are wiped clean. There's no useful fingerprints or anything, so there is some care kind of in this, but there's no ransom note. There's no actual message, right? It's just the glasses.
Right. Yeah, and that's what's kind of odd too, is that you just put the glasses in there.
Mhm.
And so I would think, again, this is just speculation, but it's like the person wants to taunt them, but
Mhm.
realizes that once you start writing things down, you're going to start revealing things about yourself. It's
Mhm.
kind of like when I think about the John Benet Ramsey note that we did a show on with Julia Cali,
Yeah.
and she was saying that, if someone writes enough, then they start to reveal things about themselves, about like their true self,
Mhm.
and what they're trying to hide in that beginning,
Mhm.
comes out. And
Yeah.
so I think that by just putting the glasses in there and using water instead of saliva on the stamp
Mhm.
is a really calculated way. I wonder if those glasses were wiped clean too of
Mhm.
fingerprints, of taunting them, but also, I don't wanna say a good way, but a way to get away with it at that time.
Mhm. Yeah, and if there's anything to read into the fact that was addressed to the stepfather and not the mother, I mean,
Right.
it gets us into this question of motive. And if we think about motive on the biggest like level, is this like it doesn't seem to be a financially motivated crime, right? And
Right.
so is it like sexual or personal? There's not really a whole lot of evidence for either one of those, right?
Not that we know. We
Mhm.
don't and I do wanna be clear about that because there's so many
Yeah,
important facts of this case that we just don't know.
a lot,
But
most of them.
right.
Yeah.
But we do know that after the glasses get mailed, the FBI gets involved, which is
Hmm.
great because they've got one of the best labs in the world.
Hmm.
And they do some additional forensic testing, but no one's charged. And of course, they have not released any information about if they've been able to get any DNA from that. Because,
Hmm.
and I want to say if, because the good thing about this case is that this offender could not have thought, he may have been thinking about not leaving his fingerprints, but touch DNA was not a thing back then.
Right, right.
And so if we do have pieces of either they've recovered at the crime scene or the glasses themselves, maybe that is something that we can revisit in the future if it's handled properly. Um, but either way, so the FBI gets involved, um, and in November 1993, a
Mhm.
skull is discovered in Monroe County, and it's initially reported as being Leigh's, or that's what is a lot of speculation on.
Mhm.
But it was later proven to be a missing woman. Um, but that's got to be rough. Like I thought about that, and you've got to be glued to the TV, probably looking for answers. And
Mhm.
anytime someone goes missing or a body's found, that's got to be so rough on the family.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking about the Gretchen Fleming case recently,
Right.
when there was, even before Gretchen Fleming was found, during some of their searches, they found the bodies of other missing people. And
Right.
this happens like actually pretty often, I feel like. And so it's yeah, it's very, very strange that um and you're wondering about what type of tips the police are getting during this time as well. Or, the other thing I'm wondering with the dogs, we talked about, just thinking out loud, did you talked about the weather and the hurricane that was coming in? Did the hurricane play any role in potentially, you know, disrupting the ability to search some of the surrounding areas, whether it's the scent or other things for the dogs?
N- I would say no.
Mhm.
And that's because if the ground is wet,
Mhm.
it's actually easier for them to track than if it's because you've got to think about like you're
Mhm.
you're not only leaving your scent, but you're also leaving footprints and like a physical disturbance
Ah,
in the earth when something's wet.
yeah.
And so unless it's like a body of actual water you're tracking through,
Mhm.
which they'll go to, like if you run into a river or a creek or something, they'll go to the river or the creek,
Mhm.
and then the handler should know, okay, I've got to work this dog up and down the creek to
Mhm.
find where they crossed. And then if you think that they did cross, you've
Mhm.
got to manually cross the creek with the dog or
Mhm.
river, and then put the dog on the other bank and have them work the bank back and forth to pick up the scent. But there's like a break and then they find it. It's not
Mhm.
like it's, it's quite often that when you're on a track, you may lose
Mhm.
that track temporarily, and the handler gives the dog a command to, keep working it, and they pick it back up and you're good to go.
Mhm.
Like that's common. But the rain aspect is not an issue in these
Okay.
things. And I'm not a bloodhound expert, but I've been on a lot of canine tracks.
I also
So
am wondering, in terms of this communicate, that I'm assuming, like, I know that they've done this, and I don't know if I haven't seen any public discussion of this, but any phone numbers that were logged for making either incoming or outgoing calls to the residents, particularly the day of, but even beyond that, like in maybe the days leading up to.
and that wouldn't be something that's been released, or at least I've seen, but that is
Mhm.
a good point that maybe this offender called the house to make sure she was alone.
Yeah.
And that may have been part of why they were able to get into the house so freely. Like, hey,
You're right.
it's Uncle Joe. I've got to come by to pick up that, y- um, a carton of milk from your
Yeah.
mom. I'll be over there in 5 minutes. And Uncle Joe comes and she unlocks the
Mhm.
door and lets Uncle Joe in.
Mhm.
And then he did what he did. And if there is an Uncle Joe, I'm not accusing you. I'm just making that up. But
Or even
yeah,
just
that's a good point. That maybe that was something that was used to see if she was home.
well, you think about, like, in the 1990s and 1980s, like, I remember we were growing up, that one of the things that I remember hearing in school and otherwise, when someone would call, a stranger would call you didn't know, this is before caller ID and stuff.
Right.
They, if they were to ask if your parents are home or ask to speak to your parents, I remember them telling us to say, like in elementary school and stuff, like to say like that they can't come to the phone this moment, or they can't come to the phone
Right.
right now, versus saying they're not home.
Right.
Right. And but she's 13 years old. And I guess I'm just wondering, what if someone called like, hey, this is so and so, is can I talk to your mom real quick, or could talk to your mom about this or that? And you know that she's picked up the phone already, and so that she's home. But then she says, "Oh no, my mom's at work," or something, or something to confirm that she's
You
by
know what?
herself.
That's a really good point, and that's a perspective that people need to realize is that during this time, she wouldn't have known if it was her mom calling her and she
Mhm.
needed to pick up that phone,
Yeah.
or if it was, some other person. You didn't know until you actually answered.
Yeah.
And so, I think that that is a good point that hopefully they've looked at that, and I'm sure they have by now. But that would definitely be a good indication of, like, how much knowledge did this offender know?
Mhm. Because we do have that very tight timeline. I mean, by the time the mother leaves somewhere between 8 and 8:30, right?
Right,
And then the mother repeatedly calls around 9 o'clock, and then when there's no answer, she becomes concerned and is gonna start heading back home. And so if we have that timeline, depending on when that was, anywhere between 8 and 8:30, and anywhere between what is when the mother leaves, and then she calls sometime around 9 o'clock, and she's home sometime before 9:30, right? So we're talking about an hour at most, if that timeline's correct, potentially less time than that. And so I always get really suspicious when the timeline starts to become really, really tight, and lots of kind of, well, what if this happened? And then this also happened, and this other
right,
thing happened, where so many unknowns all have to be true for something to work out. It starts to feel
right.
less plausible to me.
Well, it'd
Um,
be a good question for mom would be, who else knew that she was gonna be home? I meant home alone. Like, did mom tell anyone else that her daughter was gonna be home alone?
yeah.
And because those people need to be talked to. And that also gives some indication, is this something that, I mean, her dot it sounds like this was not a planned event too, and
Mhm.
so I don't see why you would have a reason to start calling people up, and social media wasn't a thing, neither was text messages, so unless mom called someone that day and
Mhm.
told them that their daughter was gonna be home alone and to
Mhm.
maybe keep an eye out for him or stop by, something to that effect,
Mhm.
how else would they have known that, that Leigh is going to be home alone and mom is not gonna be there?
Right. And so, I mean, normally with these things, when we're talking about like knowledge of, particularly someone like a young girl is 13. I mean, she's going to have a smaller circle, right? If we're thinking about victimology, it's not going to be, well, your coworkers or this, or like, it's going to
Right,
be like if it's someone who knows her. And one of the things we do know is that her father was out of town I mean, he lived in Virginia, right? They're divorced. The father was out of town, Virginia. That's been completely, his alibi was completely, confirmed by the police. So so he's not, he's out, right? We also know the stepfather voluntarily took a polygraph and passed, and he also had an alibi. He's out, right? As a suspect. Um, did you read anything about the polygraphs the mother took? I don't want to get into the mother is not a suspect. Let's just say that in this case, but with any kind of investigation, they're going to start with the family. That's just what they do.
right,
Every single
right.
investigation, no matter what, it doesn't matter if it's plausible. They usually just try to rule
Yes.
everyone out so they can move on, right?
And again, like what I said in the beginning, is stranger abduction is a rare thing.
Right,
And so the vacuum salesman is a rarity. It's not
right,
the exception. And so, eh, unfortunately, I mean, that's part of the process, is ruling out the parents. I did not see the results of the lie detector test, but one of the things that I would kind of question is, okay, if we know that mom was at work,
Mhm,
okay, and we know what time she called 911,
mhm,
then we've got a definite time frame, and within that time frame, how
mhm,
far could have mom gone? And if mom was using her car to transport Leigh, because
mhm,
again, we know that garage door is up. They've done a extensive search of the property around there. They're not getting anything.
mhm.
Then I would think that you would see some evidence in that vehicle too.
Right, and this is what makes me really doubtful about those, like, I don't this for something about this doesn't feel like a family member
And
this
people have,
up to
sorry to
this.
interrupt, but
Yeah.
I know that people have said, you know what, it was probably her mother. And I just don't.
It
I
feels
think it's
super
because they're
irresponsible in
so
some ways, but
lost and right.
right.
They don't have any other answer. And so the easiest answer is say, you know what, it was mom. But when
Right.
you look at the time frame, this is a if it was mom, why would she have not cleaned up the house better and
Right.
gotten rid of evidence? And then two, if it was mom, who mailed that? Did she mail that those glasses as well? Because that just doesn't sound like a responsible thing to do too.
Well, and now, like, I think that you yeah, no, I agree. I did that doesn't that, like, bit doesn't make any sense, and I mention it only because not in any way, shape, or form, just to be clear, am I saying that I even believe that she has anything to do with this. I think that mostly just saying that police are going to look with someone that young, they're gonna look at the family and roll them out before they kind of move on because they're gonna look at every possibility because there's so many unknowns that are here. And there is a recent development that you referenced at the beginning of this podcast with this case that was from 2025, I believe, right?
Well, yeah, a couple of things have happened. So in 2017, the case starts to get some attention because a podcast is done on it. And
Hmm.
then in October of 2024 is when Leigh's parents jointly petitioned the court to have her legally declared deceased.
Right.
And they described it as a legal necessity and not an indication that the search or investigation has ended,
Hmm.
which I understand that. And then in January of 2025, uh, the Tupelo Police Department and the Mississippi Bureau of Investigations and the FBI conducted another search of Leigh's residence and a nearby drainage area, which they've not disclosed if they found anything or what prompted that search. And again, that's in 2025.
I mean, I think it's safe to say that that search was prompted by some tip, right?
Right. And
I don't understand it. I would love to know. We're not gonna have access to that information, and we
right.
can and I don't and I don't even really wanna speculate about that part of it because it would be so uninformed, but, like, I do wonder, like, it's weird to imagine that after all these years that there would be a search of the area immediately around the house because you feel like I mean, a few things. On one hand, that would be the area because it's the crime scene
Right.
that would have been and there was hundreds of people involved, there's different agencies involved, like, you would think that would be the one area that had been thoroughly searched.
Well, in
But
a
then the
drainage ditch
well, in a drainage ditch, yeah.
or drainage pipe. Like you would
And how
think
far
that
away was this drainage pipe from the house?
that's one of my questions, but I would hope that when investigators in 2025 are looking at this report from 1992, so it's
Yeah,
most likely different investigators,
uh-huh.
that they would go through and see of what was searched. And I would really hope that they searched the house, the full house, the
Right.
curtilage, and if there is a drainage pipe nearby, that you can stuff a body in, I would hope they search that.
No, me too. That's the thing that just blew my mind looking through it, because you would also think, let's remind everyone and go back to the fact of how tight this timeline is.
Right.
We're talking about 1 hour. So like the idea that this body could be hid really well in an hour on the property, um, when there isn't even really time to clean up the blood on the counter, that makes no sense to me. What's in a way that no investigators that have thoroughly searched the house from multiple agencies could detect. That makes absolutely no sense to me.
Yeah, and it doesn't make sense to me that someone would this is at 9 o'clock in the morning, and if this drainage ditch is somewhere relative to the property, like within walking distance, if
Right.
the theory is that the offender threw her over her shoulder and walked her to this drainage ditch or pipe and stuffed her
Right.
in there,
That's
like,
so
that
weird.
just doesn't seem very plausible at 9 o'clock in the morning.
No, it sounds and neither does it sound plausible if you're concerned and you feel like you're in a rush because you're cleaning things up very quickly in the house, that you're going to, like try to hide her body like in the like around the house, or like you're not she's not buried in the backyard, right? Like wouldn't there
Right.
be evidence of like there was like disturbance in the dirt, or I'm assuming they would have brought in some technology even in the 1990s, they could tell if someone was buried in the backyard
Yeah, and
that hastily within 1 hour, right? Of
I mean, the only caveat to this is that, and this is just given every option, is that we're making the assumption that Leigh was alive
Mhm.
at 8 o'clock that morning.
Right when her mother left.
Right.
So
So if, and I'm not saying that her mother did this or a family member did this, but
someone familiar with her, let's say that.
we'll say that someone that may have had access to the house.
Right, because that's really what it's about, right? Someone who has
Right.
access and knowledge of her. Like, that's just
If Leigh was deceased before 8 o'clock,
mhm,
then that expands the entire timeline. But it also doesn't make a lot of, again, I'm just exploring every possibility. But if you eliminate that, what we presume is true about her mom leaves for work and leaves Leigh alone at the house, I would wonder, did anyone else have any contact with Leigh
right,
that morning?
right,
Or are we just assuming that she was alive? Because if she wasn't alive,
mhm,
if this was something that occurred the previous night and her body was taken to a drainage pipe under, the where it's night out and you can actually do that, then we're talking about something else. But if it really is true that Leigh was, and I don't know if they could ever confirm this besides having someone besides mom or a phone call that we know
mhm,
that Leigh definitely picked up on,
yeah.
that'd be another way to confirm it.
One
Like
of one of her
something
friends
to
talking with her that
confirm.
night on the phone
Right.
or something like that, yeah, yeah.
Because or else we're working off a false pretense of that we're talking about an hour timeline.
Right, and I think we're referring to our timeline because it's the only thing that's been kind of publicly,
Right.
kind of released. I mean, the other thing I would be curious about would be Lee's, friend circle, when the last time they had communications with her, and were there any even new people in her life or run-ins with strange characters or things like
Yeah.
that that they had raised? Because if we're assuming some level of familiarity, because assuming that the timeline, you know, hypothetically is right, is so tight. It feels like it's almost it feels so unlikely that this would be something totally random where everything lined up for this person, and then they were also able to somehow cover up their crime in such a way of something that was randomly conceived of in a way that where you could not find them. I mean, I think about the cases with like, Brittany Locklear and some of these other cases that we've talked about before on this show, where if you assume these are like random crimes like that, we still have a body at the end of it. It's like the person's not driving around, or it's this
Right.
perfect cover up of where the body is and stuff. And so I don't know. As particular as the motive was a sexual assault, like what would be and that's just an assumption because we have no way of verifying that one way or the other. I'm just
Yeah.
assuming because
Right.
it seems it's not a financial thing, and I'm also just wondering what personal grudge unless it's totally random, a 13-year-old could have that would precipitate something like of this kind of crime.
Well, and we're assuming that the grudge is against the 13-year-old, where
Mhm.
if you look at JonBenet Ramsey, for example,
That's a good point.
that
Yeah.
she was murdered, and people have theorized that it was more about John, her father, and that
Yeah,
this
that's
was
true.
about getting back at him. And this could have been the same thing, where maybe someone had a problem with her mother
Or the stepfather who the
or the
glasses were addressed to.
stepfather, right? And
Yeah.
this was a way to get back at them, was to take the thing that they love the most.
Right. So,
But
I
yeah,
and that's I think that's just as a plausible way to think about it as anything else. I mean, how do we because the question with the glasses, which are strange to tell in this case, becomes like, well, how do you read those? What's the point? There's no note. So how
right,
do you interpret telling you how to interpret it? So how do you interpret them? Is it meant to mislead? Okay, but mislead where? To this other town? Is it taunting? If it's taunting, well, who is it taunting? Is it taunting the police? Well, it's not addressed to the police. It's addressed to the stepfather. Is it taunting the
right.
stepfather? If it's taunting the stepfather, why? Um,
And if it is to show that this is like a proof of life,
mhm,
then and this was some type of ransom or kidnapping,
mhm,
you would put something in there, right? Like some type
right.
of letter, because or else it's pointless.
Mhm,
Well, I think we've kind of beat this one to death, but it's definitely an interesting case, and it's
right.
one that I do think is solvable,
Right. I would.
especially since the FBI is on the forensic side of this. Cement technology continues to evolve, and I
I,
wonder if they do have anything from this case.
It seems like I mean, there's a few good reasons to be optimistic in this case. I think that, we do have 2025. That's fairly recent in terms of activity. It means I'm assuming that came from a tip and it wasn't something they've known all along and just decided to act on in 2025. So
Right,
it means that there's still some tips that are being generated, but also means the tips are being taken seriously. And even if those tips did not produce anything yet, who knows what maybe there was something useful found. There's, from what I can tell, there has not been a lot of commentary on what they actually discovered or didn't discover. The most interesting thing to me was that the house where this occurred, I believe, is owned by different people now.
right.
And they were apparently shocked when the warrant was served because they had no idea that their house was a crime scene. So
That's gotta be an awkward feeling.
pissed at your realtor, I bet.
I
It's like,
know,
what it is.
gosh,
Like, geez. It's like,
gosh.
yeah, yeah, and the other thing we haven't talked about as well is, I mean, you'd also wonder about the as far as people who had opportunity and some familiarity and knowledge, um, neighbors. I'm assuming people that were usually, especially in the 80s and 90s, you could imagine that one of the first things they do is, oh, are there any sex offenders that live down this block or something? Like I'm assuming they did that, right? Like that's usually one of the first things they do. They even did that in Delphi, right? They like went and
Right,
like every sex offender within 50-mile radius, let's question them. I'm
right.
assuming that was almost something they would do automatically. I'm assuming that happened here too.
Yeah, and I mean, they've got a task force on this, so I'm sure that those ideas or items have been checked off. Um, But yeah, I mean, I think that it's a lot of promise, especially with them continuing to do something
Mhm,
as early as last year.
mhm.
And I do think that someone has got to know more information on this. I doubt, and I know we've said this all the time, that someone is not going to go their entire life and take this to their grave. People
Right.
talk and word will get around. And, it's just like um, in our book with Terry Hyatt, where
Mhm.
eventually one of his friends
Right.
got drunk. Terry Hyde is a serial killer from North Carolina, and he was one of the people we looked at in our book, A Murder on Campus. And in 1998, he had a friend of his walk into the sheriff's department drunk off his ass and starts confessing about being witness to one of Terry's murders.
Yeah.
And that's how a whole investigation started, and they eventually pinned 3 murders on him. I'm sure he's responsible for more. But my point is that, especially with this brutal of a crime,
Mhm.
I don't think that people are just taking this to their grave and everyone's keeping their mouth shut for decades.
And if you are someone who went to high school or junior high school with Lee, and there are weird comments a classmate has made, or any other, I would say at this point in time where the case is cold, any rumors or anything that you heard at the time that you are kind of just passing along in good faith, I would, is always a good idea just to defer, even if it's nothing. Let me just pass this along to investigators. If it's something in good faith, you're just asking them to
Yeah.
know that you heard, and they can decide whether it's important or it's nonsense or whatever, but um, don't try to make that determination yourself.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you're upfront about where you heard it, I
Yeah,
think that that's a good thing to do, because a lot of times those rumors spun up from something that actually occurred.
right.
So, all right. Well, speaking, I know we've mentioned the book a few times. Do you want to tell them about A Murder on Campus?
Murder on campus. So this is about the 1973 murder of Virginia Olson on the campus of UNC Asheville. This is the only murder to occur in this small college's history. If you are someone who is interested in Asheville, North Carolina. I know they do a lot of tourism industry this over the summer. This is a good book to pick up and read. If you're someone who likes cold cases, it's one of the most famous cold cases from Western North Carolina from this era that's still unsolved. And if you just like true crime and want an interesting story with lots of twists, and get a chance to hear us talk about in the book, kind of like we're talking right now about a case, and but in that instance of the book, uncover some new evidence that's never been actually revealed before, and some lots of interesting kind of revelations. It's a good read. I actually read it again just recently, so I can recommend it. So,
And you've got another book that you just finished first rough draft on.
yeah, so this is A Murder in Niceville, the Deborah Elizabeth Espy story. This is another cold case from 1973 that is no longer cold, that was solved in December 2025. So that will probably be out within a year, but subscribe to briansantanaauthor.com. There we go. If you want updates, I will certainly not be shy about posting information about that once we get a pre-order release date. True Crime at True Crime Professor on Instagram is the main way I communicate. So follow me there. And of course, I like to pop up on this channel too. So subscribe here.
All right. Well, we appreciate you coming on. If you want to support me, you can start off by liking and subscribing to Santana True Crime. You can also follow me on Instagram and other social medias at Santana True Crime. So if you've got a case that you would like me to cover, please send it to me. If you want to support the show, you can be a member now on YouTube for $1.99 a month. And what that gets you is early access to the shows itself, as well as the YouTube shorts that we put out. And we're going to do some other content just for you. And if you want to pick up your Santana True Crime koozie, we also have those available for sale as well. as your Santana True Crime hat. And we've got some decals as well as signed books. If you want a signed A Murder on Campus book that's signed by myself and Dr. Brian, and if you want personalized, we'll do that for you too. You can buy those all on the YouTube website there. I appreciate everyone for tuning in. And Brian, thanks again.
Thank you. It was fun.
All right. Good night.